whether he's going to play or not. I think it does change, some of the things that they do out there. So we'll keep our eye on it. I know it's going to be a game time decision as far as if he plays or not. I do. We're preparing for him to play. And if he's not out there, then we'll have to make some adjustments.
When you are, first of all, there are so many great coaching stories this year. When you think you have 3 or 4, then there's another and another. Nate's done such a good job. Brevin, when you lose a guy like Victor Oladipo, everything changes. And we watch them try and find a way offensively during the season. But isn't this exactly kind of what we saw? They're tough, right? They'll do a lot of the right things, but making shots without Victor Oladipo, not easy for this team.
Well, it's the one thing that they're going to struggle with most with Oladipo being out is figuring out how do they make shots? How do you get good shots on your offensive end? Oladipo is a guy that can not only create for himself, but he also can draw double teams that then allows his other teammates to live off of his plays. Without him being out there, now the defense is able to lock in a lot more. They're going to need Tyreke Evans to really come out of his shell and be a scorer. I think throughout the year had taken a back seat to Oladipo, but with him being on, he's a guy that can create his own opportunities, but he's also a guy that can create opportunities for his teammates because of his aggressive nature. They're going to need for him to step up, and if they can have an inside out with Turner, then that gives them at least an opportunity.
I agree, and I also think defensively they're going to have to create situations where they're in fast break situations to get open threes, easy layups, and get to the free throw line. I think they have to score with the clock stop. That we just showed Miles Turner. He's going to have a big defensive night. And shooting, you're going to have to knock down shots, plain and simple, if you're going to beat this team.
Indiana 1-8 this season when Turner scores 7 or less. Darren Collison has not been scoring. And look, we love, even like in TV, we love the supporting cast. Like Kramer, George, they're great. No Seinfeld and no show, right? So what do when you don't have the main guy? Brevin, from an offensive standpoint, getting rebounds and extra shots is important. And in that third quarter, we were talking about it off the air. You look at those notes, they get outboarded by 8. You miss 17 shots, they get 2 offensive rebounds the whole quarter.
Right, and the hard part about that is especially when Boston is big with Baines and Horford on the floor, it's going to be extremely hard to get the extra possessions. Can you move the ball well enough in your offensive set that you get the Boston Celtics defense moving? Now you have driving lanes, you get driving kick situations, but manufacturing points, as Vince said, fast break opportunities. It was the Celtics with a 24-14 advantage in their fast break situation. So it's all about offense. If you look up and say that I've only given a team 84 points in the game, then you feel comfortable about where you can be.
Correct.
The problem is they only score 74.
Age is, we open showing Vince highlights, age is just a number. If you
exactly.
want proof of that, you had no minutes restriction. Anthony Davis, I wouldn't say half your age, had a minutes restriction. I don't find that to be fair. We'll come back, we'll talk about AD. Of course, maybe not for the same reasons. Our boy Griff is in charge. What does it mean for the Pels? We'll take a look and listen. It is Game 2, Celtics and Pacers, and while he will be on the floor, he won't be suiting up for the Pacers. They could have used him in the third quarter, Reg, where they shot 2 of 19 in Game 1. Our own Reggie Miller will be on the call for TNT. Let me start with that. No Victor Oladipo, Reg. We know how big of a piece he was for this team. They've got such good a cast of role players, but how do they get out of that group what they need offensively?
Timely scoring, and it's got to be by committee, but personally, to me, it starts with Bojan Bogdanovic. He's got to be more aggressive. Only 12 points in Game 1. Give the Celtics and really Jaylen Brown all the credit. I think Brad Stevens told us going in that normally that defensive assignment would have been drawn by Marcus Smart. He's out, obviously, because of the injury. Brown gets the start. He's much taller, longer than Smart. And he's got a lot of the tricks that Marcus Smart has. So he's getting underneath Bojan, and they're not top-locking him. They're forcing him to the middle, and he's doing a good job of staying connected. So Bojan has to be more aggressive offensively. You take away that third quarter for the Pacers where they shot 2 of 19 and only 8 points. they played an excellent game plan. I mean, they only held the Celtics to 84 points on 36% shooting. So the defense was there. They just didn't have any offense. Only 2 Pacers in double figures, and one was Corey Joseph, and he hadn't led the Pacers in scoring in 2 seasons. So that tells you right there that's a problem.
Reg, during the course of the year, the 2 C's, the Celtics and consistency have not gotten together much. Brad Stevens knows that. How important is it for this team, not just to win the series, but to come out each game after a win, for example, a game 1 tonight, and to show that they have taken things to a more consistent level of play here in the playoffs?
You saw a little bit of that inconsistency in the first 2 quarters to start this ball game. I thought the Pacers did a great job of kind of going at the Celtics, and it looked like the Celtics were kind of going through the motions a little bit. That physicality showed up in the second half, in particular in that third quarter. And that's the way the Celtics have to play. There was a much more ball movement. They got stops. They got out and ran. They only had 2 fast break points in the first half, 22 in the second half. So their defense fueled their offense. And even though Kyrie didn't have a great shooting night, 6 of 17, only 20 points, to me his overall game was pretty effective. I see the Celtics, if they can continue that ball movement, and Jason Tatum, he's going to have to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. I think they're starting to find that group. And to me, Marcus Morris, 20 points off the bench. He was the X factor in game 1.
Reg, in your opinion, do you think the Pacers need Sabonis and Tariq Evans to have big nights for them to have a chance to win tonight?
Well, obviously, Sabonis is in the running for the 6th man of the year. He won't win it. That'll go to Lou Williams. But his presence, as soon as he comes on, because of his physicality, I thought Brad Stevens and the Celtics did a great job of keeping Aaron Baines, a more physical player, as both of you guys know, keeping Baines on Sabonis and taking that physicality out. They didn't switch a lot, where that's where Sabonis, when he gets the switch of those small forwards and power forwards, and he can kind of punish them in the post, they took that away, and they kept Baines on him. So they're going to need Sabonis' offense. And you're right. Evans he was only 3 of 11. He's got to be more aggressive. But how about Miles Turner and how about Thaddeus Young? Those 2 guys offensively, we talked about the Pacers. They are the sum of all their parts. With the Oladipo injury, where he was the go-to guy, he set the table offensively for this Pacers team. It's got to be by committee. So all those guys we mentioned, you just can't have 2 guys score in double figures and only score 74 points. You got to have 5 or 6 guys in double figures where you don't know where the offense is coming from. That's what made this Pacers team so dangerous all season long after the Oladipo injury.
Well, Reg, this Celtics team, they have bigger dreams of becoming the Eastern Conference champions. A big problem was camaraderie throughout the season and issues with them in terms in the locker room. They only had 18 assists, but you talk about their ball movement. Can you tell that there's more of a connected spirit with this Celtics team where they are now?
Brevin, you're absolutely right. And as both of you know, everyone starts 0-0 come playoff time. So whatever happened during the regular season, whatever infighting was going on in the locker room, you put that aside, because now it's a quest for 16, to win 16 games and to win a championship. And again, they came out a little bit in a daze, in a fog in that first half, but I really thought defensively they stepped it up in that second half, and it was much better ball movement. And I think that camaraderie will grow. Obviously, the more wins you have, this is a perfect first-round matchup, because these 2 teams have been battling one another for the last 3 weeks. They knew they were going to be facing one another. The question was who was going to have home court advantage. It ended up being Boston. So I think that camaraderie is coming for the Celtics. But you're right, better ball movement and better communication. I think they are much better when they are communicating on defense and creating offense from that defense.
Reggie, appreciate the time. Looking forward to the broadcast. Should be a great atmosphere in Boston. Enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And
don't
try to sign me up, all right? I'm not trying to play. Don't try to sign me up.
They need you.
And you can still hit a few.
They need
Vince. Vince is the 45-year-old that's out here playing, okay?
There he is, Reggie Miller, joining us as we look ahead to game number 2. Al Horford. There was a question whether or not he would play with the illness, getting his sweat on, upgraded to probable. Looks like he will be able to go for game 2. Can Indiana get home with a split? We look at the upcoming schedule, obviously tonight, if you didn't know, just moments away from game number 2, and then back at it Friday in Indiana. Should be a great atmosphere there. Game 1 went to the Celtics. The third quarter, no, Pacers didn't shoot well, but the defense across the board for the C's was great, led by Jaylen Brown, something Coach Brad Stevens noticed.
Ask you about a different guy in Jaylen. How has his role as a defender evolved over the last year or so in terms of the kind of players he can guard and the things he can do for you?
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten better. He's a guy that initially in his rookie year, we really tried to hone in on certain matchups and just, study the heck out of these guys and be good against these guys. Second year, be a little bit more versatile. Third year, you got to be able to do it all. I think that Marcus is such a great, kind of model for that. He's able to guard on the ball. He's able to run off screens. He's able to do all that other stuff. And I think Jaylen's really gotten better at it. He's always been great trailing screens and being there on the catch and those type of things. Where we've seen big improvement is in directing and pick and rolls and making the ball handler more uncomfortable. You go back to his first year in the playoffs, and that was where he had to improve, and he's worked really hard on it. And the hard part about those guys is they are always guarding the really potent scorers, and so if you take a second off, you'll probably get exposed.
Scott Agnes, The Athletic. Brad, have you given yourself a chance to reflect facing the hometown team? You look over at Reggie, whose number you wore, is sitting across the way. Larry's up in the stands. Does that carry any significance?
It's, I think if I would, I'd say it's surreal, right? Because, you grow up, and I'm an Indiana kid, and that was basketball in that state are really, really important to me. That being said, I kind of stay in this world of focus ahead and focus on what's next, and I'll look back on it after the fact. When we go to Indiana, I'll be holed up in my hotel room and I'll see people in the summer. We got a job to do, and so we're really focused on that.
All right, can I call you back?
Yeah. The calling card for the defense in game 1 without their best defender, when you look at what Marcus Smart gives the team, was actually the fact that they played it together. And Jaylen Brown individually stands out. But going back to the question that you asked, Reggie, let's get into that, because consistency, continuity, none of those things seem to really be omnipresent throughout the course of the season. Can it happen during the course of a playoff series? The talent has always been there. That's never been the question.
Yeah, I think it can happen because now it becomes really one goal, and the goal is to win the series. And so at this point, they have one thing to focus on. When the season is going on, you got another game. There's different instances that go on. Injuries happen. But now you get to this point, you can see the end game. You don't see the end game during the regular season. And I thought Reg made a big point with, yes, they are missing their big-time defender, but I thought Jaylen Brown, he talked about his length, and as long as he is willing to defend, then he gives them a lot different look on the defensive side.
And to add to that, it made them look great because they stuck to the defensive concept. Whatever the game plan was defensively, he did it.
Right.
Keep him off the line, push him into the middle of the paint, make him shoot twos. And then now he looks like a great defender. That's what the great defensive teams do. You have your great individual defensive players, but when you have a great team defense, when you have a great player who's a great team defensive player,
right,
he looks great. And when you stick to the game plan, you give yourself a chance to win, especially when you're not scoring a lot of points.
Now, what if the game plan defensively was to have no game plan? Because some in Utah or Houston might be thinking maybe that was the story with James Harden and the very interesting decision on how to defend him-ish. Go, James! Take it to the house. We got Game 2 preview coming up on the other side.